overall profile you can see of the metabolic profile for beta plaques, including that ambulatory metabolism discovery.
Along with low or high protein diet, you end up having much higher digoxin exposure when the mice were fed with high protein diet. Probably because arginine in high protein diet suppresses this gene expression and there is less digoxin metabolism in the gut.
Wild type animals or animals that are lacking HOP3. So we moved into an in vitro system in which we took HEC293 cells and we overexpressed the mouse ortholog, and we confirmed that at different time points, doxorubicin is actually accumulating to higher amounts in cells that are overexpressing HOP3.
Hello and welcome back to Big Discussions. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusef Dunbar. You've heard my standard introduction of myself and to the channel before, so I'm not going to do that this time. But I will ask you to please like the video and please share it and subscribe to the channel. Particularly, please share it with any STEM hopefuls that you know, or someone that you think could benefit from this. When I first started this channel, one of the things that I wanted to do was to leverage my knowledge of science and STEM to help other individuals and other youngsters like myself who had no STEM professionals in their family, or just didn't have that knowledge set and experience available to them. So please share this, and thank you for all of you who have subscribed to the channel up to this point. Right now I'm sitting at 41 subscribers, and I'm hoping to go well beyond that, and you will and can play a huge role in me going beyond that number. So I originally shot a version of this video yesterday on Mother's Day from my hotel room. It's been a busy week. I actually traveled up to Ann Arbor, Michigan for a science meeting. Before I jump into all that, I want to make a comment about who would be interested in this video. So folks curious about science, science hopefuls, STEM hopefuls, and just curious minded people. So I went up to Ann Arbor, Michigan last week, which is where I did my PhD in pharmacology, hence the t-shirt. And I attended a science meeting called the Great Lakes Drug Metabolism and Disposition Group Meeting. I know that's a mouthful, but it's once I start talking about it, you'll see that it's actually pretty cool. It was a meeting that was particularly geared toward the field of drug metabolism and things associated with that field. But first, before I get into the meeting and some of what was discussed there, I want to say that in a more global sense, no matter what field you're in, it's important to have a plan for yourself. I'll say that again. It's important to have a plan for yourself. Whichever company or organization that you work for, they have their own plan to achieve their mission, and that involves a plan for you. But it's important that you think about developing yourself and growing yourself and having a trajectory for yourself independent and maybe even beyond what they want for you. I often think of, when I think of my current place of employment, I often think about the movie Alien, the original one starring Sigourney Weaver and Tom Skerritt and John Hurt and Yaphet Kotto. And there's a scene in the movie where I think at that point the creature had killed off half the crew, and they had reactivated the android. They were in the process of reactivating the android, Ash, and Sigourney Weaver's character Ripley says, I think the company wanted the alien for the weapons division. So the company had its own plan, and it sent that crew, the crew of the Nostromo, to this planet to retrieve the alien and bring it back. And of course you go on to find out that their lives were secondary. And I'm not saying that, my current employer or your employer sees it that way, but I'm just saying that the way this thing usually works out is that your company or organization, they have their own mission and they have their own plan, and it's important for you to, at some point push your own agenda and do what you have to do to further yourself. So this meeting that I attended, it didn't necessarily fall under the purview or the interests of my current employer. And so employers tend to invest resources on things that will benefit them. And so I was fortunate, or I've been fortunate, that I have created a second income stream. And I was able to pay for myself to go to this meeting off of that second income stream. And that's all I'll say about that. So it's important to have your own plan for yourself and for your life. So this meeting, the Great Lakes Drug Metabolism and Disposition Group meeting, this is the actual program from the meeting. So I returned to my roots, my ADME roots, because my actual training in pharmacology took place in a drug metabolism lab. And basically, drug metabolism is the study of what happens to chemicals and molecules once they get into living systems, in this case humans. And we often use other animals, as models, and now even cells and proteins in vitro to help us distill down what happens to a molecule in the living system. So just take this ibuprofen here from Rite Aid. A lot of study went into what this molecule actually does, and also how the body handles it once you swallow it. And you can get a dose of a molecule like this, or any molecule, orally, via inhalation, or even dermally on your skin. But what I'm trying to communicate to you now is that there are scientists who specialize in asking questions about what happens to molecules in living systems, and they spend a lot of their entire research time trying to figure out what happens to the molecule once it gets into your body. Because when we get sick, we pop these pills in our mouths, and we take these medications, and we feel better, and then we just carry on throughout our day. But there's an actual whole science behind what happens to the molecule once it gets into your body. And there are a ton of things that can happen to these molecules once they get into your body. And I'm going to give a whole video on that later on. But for the sake of this video, there are meetings about this. And I wrote up a series of posts on my blog about the sciences I was trained in, pharmacology, toxicology, ADME/drug metabolism, and inhalation toxicology. And I pointed out that each of those sub-disciplines and fields has its own meeting. So that's something to be aware of. No matter which STEM you're in and which field you're in, there's typically going to be a meeting for that particular field. So a history of the meeting. So my graduate advisor, and I'm going to keep his identity anonymous, was a very brilliant man, and about 15 years ago, he felt as though there needed to be a meeting in the Midwestern region, or the Great Lakes region, Lake Erie, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan. He felt like there needed to be a meeting of the drug metabolism scientists at the various companies and universities periodically to discuss their research and to network, and where students could get career advice and find potential employers. So a group of scientists got together and created this meeting, and so it rotates every year from a location at multiple locations in the Midwest. This year it was at Michigan, the University of Michigan. In other years it's in Illinois, and in other years it's been in Indianapolis, and so it moves. But it's a group of drug metabolism scientists organizing this and getting together so they can further the field and network and do those kinds of things. So the clips you saw at the beginning of this video were from Ann Arbor. The first shot was of the University of Michigan's medical research complex, including the hospital and its many research buildings. And that's where I earned my PhD. And going back to Ann Arbor is always like going home in a way. I experienced a lot of growth there as a scientist and also as a man. So it's always good to think about where I came from and what I learned and how I evolved. I showed you some shots of the university's North Research Complex, which actually used to be Pfizer's Ann Arbor site. So, and before that, I believe it was a company called Park Davis, and then after that, a company called Warner Lambert. And that shows the turnover in the pharmaceutical industry and how things change and evolve. But what's also interesting is that when I was a student, I wanted to work at Pfizer. I wanted to go back and work at that site and stay in Ann Arbor. And then as I was finishing up my degree, that site actually closed. So things are always changing and evolving. But now the university has taken over that property, and now it's a research complex for faculty and students, and that's where the meeting was actually held. I showed you the banner for the meeting, and also I gave you some snippets of some of the talks. I didn't want to make those snippets too long, just so as not to make this video too long, but I wanted to give the layperson a feel for what happens at a scientific meeting. There are talks, so I think for any STEM hopeful watching this, I'm hoping that you saw that in addition to having a command over your subject area like those scientists did, you have to be able to speak fluently and articulately about your subject matter, which all of those speakers did. all those speakers were talking about something related to drug metabolism, and there are multiple parts to that, and I'm gonna do a whole video series on the stems that I've been trained in. So I'm gonna revisit ADME / drug metabolism in greater detail later. So let's talk a little bit about science meetings and why those are important and what happens there. So when you get into a scientific field, you gradually start to realize that it's not just, well, a major part is actually doing the research and doing the science at your bench or in your lab or in your work area, in your department at your particular school or company. But what you eventually see is that science is also a culture and it's also a community. And so when you go to a meeting like this, you see that there is a community of scientists who all know each other, and there are family trees. So there are scientists who've been raised and groomed off of specific lineages, and you could trace back who the original scientist was who gave rise to their predecessors or their successors or their progeny. So their whole trees, just like in basketball and just like in the business world, there are whole trees of scientists. There are friendships. There are peers. There are colleagues, and there are competitors, and all these people know each other. And so there's a definite human component to science and to these scientific meetings. The scientists there, they share their findings, the ones that they're willing to unveil and share with everyone else. They share them via oral talks like the ones that I showed you at the beginning of this video, and they share them also via posters. I didn't take any footage of posters, but at any science meeting, whether it's a big one or a small one, and this one was a small one, there are usually posters where people put their findings on large posters, on poster boards, and where visitors to the meeting can walk by and ask questions about their data and about their experiments. There's a lot of networking that takes place at these meetings, which is a huge benefit, particularly to students. And if you're a STEM student or a science student, eventually it's going to be huge for you to get to the meetings so that you can network, talk with other scientists and professors, and also to meet potential employers. If you don't get to the meetings, you're missing out on a lot. So that should be something that's always on the back of your mind as a student and as a STEM hopeful. So there's a lot of networking, there's a lot of exchanging of information, and there's a lot of collaborations that are set up and built there. So there's a lot of networking that goes on at these meetings. And lastly, there are a lot of vendors. The vendors and sponsors are usually there showing their wares and showing their products because the scientists at the meetings are typically their customers. So you always see a lot of vendors and sponsors there. At this meeting, one of the more fun parts of these meetings are the toys you get. Novibiosis was there. This is a liver. Let's see. Xenotech was there. I didn't realize that this was a kidney, but this is a kidney. And also, once again, novibiosis. This is a lung. And again, in my the videos I'm going to make about some of these fields, you're going to see how all these organs play a key role in the metabolism and how the metabolism of these molecules and how the body handles these molecules. The brain is another. This is from Gibco. They were there. This brain this stress ball, because you squeeze this. The brain is also a pharmaceutical target, and it also has its own unique properties that scientists have to consider in order to get a molecule, a drug or a molecule into the brain. So, in closing, that's the meeting that I attended. It's important to go to meetings, and it's important to have a plan for your own life and your own career, independent of what your current organization or employer has in store for you. And going to meetings is key for your own development. Once you get your PhD or your master's or whatever that is, whatever your desired degree is, and it's critical to go as a scientist. So look out for numerous STEM-related videos coming up. I think the first one will be on the basic research sciences. I'll follow that up with what regulatory science is, because I get that question a lot when I meet people, because I'm in the regulatory sector now, and a lot of people don't know what regulatory scientists do. I'll probably make a video on the transferable skills that you get when you pursue a science degree, because there's a whole slew of skills you get when you pursue a STEM degree. And then I will talk specifically about pharmacology, toxicology, ADME/drug metabolism, and inhalation toxicology. So watch out for those. And I'm going to stop here. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.